Hey guys, how's it digging? So, I'm the nerdy movie guy, and today we're going to talk about the Equalizer 2, the one with Denzel Washington. I don't know if there's another Equalizer 2, but we're going to talk about this one today. So, I got the 4K copy, and this one's pretty neat. And I had an interesting watch because for about the first 30 minutes, I was wondering if this movie was going to go anywhere. And when the plot picked up, it really picked up, and it just kept going and going and going until the movie finished. So, this was pretty cool, and I want to explain why. So, in this movie, we see Robert McCall returns, and is presumed he's in a new city from the last movie, and he like the last one, he's living this regular life, and he's an I forget if he's a Lyft driver, an Uber driver, but because he can see, different people, he's learning about more people's lives, learning more about people's age groups, and of course, he learns about someone who ended up being a victim, and he gets involved with that. So we get to see a little bit of bits and pieces of action with him toward the beginning. However, because of this, we get to learn about a couple different side stories. And this movie had side stories that the first one really didn't have. So there's like a few different characters that have their own stories in this movie aside from him. And one of them is Miles. There's a new character that you can tell he just sort of has this tough group of people around him. And Robert McCall, he's trying to help him out. So we get to see him take on the sort of parental figure for Miles. And that's just really a nice story in this movie, and it was a breath of fresh air because it was something different, and we get to see, it's where we see an action character get a real grounded, generic, more intimate role. So that was pretty cool to see him have that in this movie. And of course there's a couple other characters that get their own side stories throughout. But where the plot picks up is we have Dave York. He's played by Pedro Pascal, everyone's favorite Mandalorian. And in this movie, he's sort of, he's with the Bureau, he's with the government. I forget the name, guys. I'm bad with names, all right? I don't know which organization he's part of. I forget the name. But, he's government, and he's involved with one of Robert McCall's friends ends up dying. And the Bureau, we're going to say the Bureau for the sake of this video because I'm stupid and I can't remember. So Dave York gets involved. Robert McCall's trying to get involved. There's other people involved, and that becomes a central plot, is who killed his friend, and because it's connected to another crime, which is connected to a bigger plot, and it's just sort of, this little story sort of blossoms into this grand scale story for these characters. And in this movie, we get to see sort of him playing, Robert McCall playing an intimate role. I would say the first 45 minutes. It was about 45 minutes till the plot really picked up before he realized who's behind what's been happening in this movie. And when that happens, it's just sort of action nonstop. It's these really tense situations that you don't know what's going to happen. And so Pedro Pascal, his character Dave York, he's sort of seen what's happened before. And, he's sort of been taken advantage of. So he wants to protect his family, his children. He's a father. So he's protecting his kids. And that's his story in this movie. So we sort of get to see him in the same role again. But, I'm all for it. It's great. And so that's the reasoning behind, his part in this movie. And when Robert McCall sort of finds out who it is, when it becomes action nonstop, it's some really great action. There's some really interesting different kills, like in the first one. But as far as the kills and violence are concerned, there's not as much as the first one. But it worked because it sort of had a laid back tone to this movie that the first one really didn't have, or didn't have the chance to display. And I think this movie just really, when it picked up, it just became another action movie. But it was great action. It was fun to watch. And toward the end, we get to see some of these side stories sort of wrap up nicely. And I thought that was cool to see. So this movie definitely felt like, I could see why some people would consider it to be a weak sequel, just because it didn't have as much as the first one did. But I think the less is more concept sort of helped this movie propel to be what it is. And I took it for what it is. I enjoyed it through and through. Like I said, I struggled a little bit to understand where the movie was going in the first 30 to 45 minutes. But if you get through that, if you can just appreciate the acting and the side stories that's constantly building, then the stories you've invested in for the first part, it's going to pay off when you finish the movie. And I think they did it well. They wrapped everything up, and I don't know where the third is going to go from here, but I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to review it. I look forward to what's next for Denzel Washington's career, and I just can't wait to see where else this franchise would go. I have been hearing rumors that I take with a grain of salt because rumors mean nothing anymore, but there is rumor that apparently some of the studios want a Robert McCall and John Wick crossover movie, which is ironic because that's what I was talking about in the last movie, is them sort of being compared a little bit. So the thought of them in the same movie could be really cool. I think it could work. I think it would be really hard for the studios to do both these characters and both franchises justice with that kind of a crossover, especially with John Wick or Equalizer 3 supposedly being the end, and John Wick Chapter 4 supposed to be his end. I don't know where they would go with the crossover, but hey, if they do it, I'm all in. I'm going to go see it. I'm going to enjoy it. I know it would be great. They'd have two great actors. So regardless, this movie is pretty fun. If you're looking for another action movie, obviously, I would recommend seeing the first one. But if you don't, you sort of get enough of the picture in this one where you don't have to. It just enhances the watching experience a little bit. But overall, this was a fun action movie. Great characters, some great acting in here. If you need another action movie, I recommend the Equalizer franchise. The first two movies are great. Can't wait to watch the third. Thanks for sticking with me, guys.